A primal factor of what makes Subnautica such an engrossing series is something that the creators didn't even set out to do originally, and that's the never-ending sense of thalassophobia, of terror, of dread about what's out there. No matter what biome you go to, no matter where you swim in the seas of Planet 4546b, there is always an ominous feeling that we are not alone. And it's that feeling that has captured the hearts and souls of so many players, and garnered a community that even years after release plays and talks about the game daily. And that's why this next biome on my list is one of my single favorites of all time. One that, while we know so little about, embodies the core principles that make Subnautica Subnautica: the Void. Also called Crater's Edge and appearing in Subnautica Below Zero as the World's Edge, this never-ending and enormous biome is essentially everything we cannot see. And that's because outside of the bounds of the regular map in all Subnautica games lies a world devoid of any flora and most forms of life entirely. An open ocean that, rather than inviting you in to explore its depths like all others, is nothing but utter darkness, where the light above is consumed and eaten alive by the nothingness below. When you travel here in-game, you're given many warnings from the ship's AI systems, along with ominous sounds of things far below that you cannot even see. As you continue downwards, you watch as the mountains around you give way to the void and the abyss, and by the time you hit almost 1200 meters, the world gives away entirely to an endless ocean before you, so dark and twisted that even your lights cannot penetrate anything. By 4,000 meters, ghost leviathans begin to make an appearance and hunt you as you quickly move even further downwards. And by the time you hit exactly 8,192 meters in any direction, the game breaks and you teleport back to the top of the crater. The Void, more than any other biome in Subnautica, shows us what the true horrors of the ocean are. The endless blackness that extends forever. The sounds and moans of ancient monsters that are so large and so disfigured that they would make other aliens on this world look like cute puppies in comparison. And more than anything, it's the idea this zone puts in our heads, the nightmares it gives you, or the simple questions of what is out there that make it so special. Because you see, the scariest parts of Subnautica aren't when a leviathan chases you or when a loud sound hits your microphones. It's those slower moments, when you realize just how small we are in this dark world and how little we actually know. Coming to terms with the fact that despite spending hundreds of hours in this world, you have barely scratched the surface. Or the ideas that pop into your head long after you have played about things that might not even exist, but are even scarier for it. That's what makes Subnautica's atmosphere special, and also what makes the Void as a biome one of the single best in Subnautica's history. One that will always be one of the best because of the simple fact that the fear of the unknown, of what we cannot see, as the famous horror and science fiction author H.P. Lovecraft put it, is the oldest and strongest kind of fear out there. And while gameplay-wise, this biome basically has absolutely nothing to do, and that's why it's not number one on my list, realistically, the fact that the Void makes you look out and question does kind of make it the best, in a way. While the Safe Shallows might be the first biome players fall in love with while playing Subnautica, I feel like the Kelp Forest is usually where people realize just how amazing the game is actually going to be. And that's because the Kelp Forest is your initial glimpse into how alien and fantastical the oceans of Subnautica are, and is host to some of the most atmospheric moments in any playthrough. Located between the Safe Shallows, grassy plateaus, and mushroom forest, the Kelp Forest is one of the earliest areas that players will encounter, but also one of the most striking. Ranging from a depth of 0 to 160 meters, the entire zone is littered in massive creep vines, towering green kelp plants that grow from the seabed floor all the way hundreds of meters up towards the surface. They actually do this in an attempt to capture more sunlight for food, and grow massive roots in the ground in order to support themselves. But for players, the reason they are so notable is simply because they are just plain awesome. The massive creep vines in the Kelp Forest cast dark shadows across the entire region, where only small traces of light are able to make their way to the sandy outcrops below. And this makes the whole biome come to life with an almost zen horror aesthetic, where things should be scary, but they're so beautiful you can't look away. On top of this, the biome is home to a myriad of different forms of life, including bleeders and stalkers, shark-shaped monsters with elongated bodies and noses similar to what you would find on, say, Earth's gharial crocodiles. These predators like to hide within the confines of the dense creep vines and pop out when you least expect in order to catch prey off guard. Along with these monstrosities are more elegant and peaceful organisms as well, like the peepers that have migrated over from the safe shallows, or the seed clusters which can be harvested from the body of creep vines using your knife for use in creating lubrication. It's another one of those early zones that just feels alive because of a really distinct sense of character, and this feeling carries over into Subnautica Below Zero as well, where you can explore the Arctic kelp zone, which is very similar in most ways except for the creep vines being a much more distinct puke yellow hue. And really, it's just one of those zones that doesn't try to do too much, instead opting for a very focused experience, and it manages to nail it perfectly. The vibes just swimming around here are absolutely unmatched, and despite the fact that some of the biomes coming up on this list are a lot more fantastical or crazy, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see many of you in the comments arguing that the Kelp Forest is still the best in spite of all of it. It really just is immersive and awesome, especially on a first playthrough. I know it was for me at least. As you would probably guess, the deeper you go into the waters of Subnautica, the more crazy things you find. And this principle carries over to Below Zero as well, where within the deepest caves and darkest corners of the ocean, you can stumble upon biomes that remind you of just how alien this planet is. But in terms of places like this, far and away the most striking are the Crystal Caves and Fabricator Caverns. Both of these zones are immediately recognizable due to their massive purple and red crystal columns respectively, which grow on the ground and walls around you. This means both biomes can be an absolute pain to actually traverse and navigate, as it's always hard to tell where you are, but if you manage to get past the initial frustration, you are met with what is, in my opinion, the most amazing looking set of biomes in the entire series. For the Crystal Caves specifically, the location can only be accessed via the deep purple vents or lily pad crevice, meaning you likely will be very far into the game by the time you get here. And since the Fabricator Caverns can only be found through small openings in the Crystal Caves, the region is even more secluded. In both biomes, you can find two massive shadow leviathans which will aggressively defend their territory, as well as bladderfish, triops, rock grubs, ribbon plants, and eclipse roots. And for a place that reaches well over 500 meters deep into the ocean, far within the world's ancient underground caves, it's surprising just how much life is actually down here too. But still, as you would expect, most of what you will actually be doing here is simply swimming around and enjoying the sights. But as I mentioned before, it's those exact views that are what make these zones so special. And despite how much hate I've seen online for these biomes because of how annoying they can be to actually traverse, I genuinely think that these massive red and purple crystals add so much to these caves, making them stand out entirely versus everything else in the series, and it really makes you feel like you are in an inexplainable place. The Crystal Caverns as well specifically are home to the Crystal Caves cache, which is one of the most important architect bases in the game, where you can find vital components you need to scan to create the architect's ship. But honestly, at the end of the day, the reason I put these two biomes so high on my list while a lot of others might not, is that I just can't imagine Subnautica without them. Each are striking in their own way and somehow manage to host a lot of variety too. For example, in the Crystal Caves you can travel to the fissures, massive trenches composed of a murky green fog and covered in seagrass and hydrothermal vents. Or what about the Crystal Castle, a smaller cave system within a cave system that has significantly more dense crystalline growths, which entirely consume the region and transform it into a compact set of antechambers and confusing corridors. Places like this perfectly play into the almost paradoxical feeling of claustrophobia we can find ourselves in the ocean, and manage to be some of the coolest looking places imaginable on top of that. I mean, seriously, look at these biomes. If you were to see an image of either for just a split second, you would instantly ask yourself, what game is that and how do I play it? And in a way, what more could a biome in Subnautica do than that? Oftentimes, certain biomes in Subnautica take a little warming up to. What might start off as a boring sea of nothingness could turn into a tapestry of vibrancy and color out of nowhere and capture your full attention. But in terms of biomes in Subnautica that make a great first impression with no extra investigation needed, it's rare to find one better than the Jellyshroom Caves. Located just below the major starting zone of the first game, that being the Safe Shallows, Kelp Forest, and Grassy Plateaus, the Jellyshroom Caves sit at a depth between 180 and 300 meters, and as such, you will most likely need a sea moth with upgraded defense systems to even survive down here. To actually reach the cave systems though, it's crucial to find any of the many openings in the rocky seafloor, which looks to go deeper than any other nearby caves. Because if you find one of these spots, usually dotted with small purple jelly shrooms near the rim, simply by going inside you will immediately be met by absolute splendor. The caves are characterized by never-ending purple hues that illuminate the entire underground system, full of stalactites and stalagmites. Everywhere you look, you are surrounded by massive glowing mushrooms, which light your way as you search abandoned bases and hunt for valuable resources like diamond and lithium. And really what makes this whole experience so awesome is that there's just nowhere else in the game quite like it. And because it can be found right beneath your nose in the starting zones, it's a natural first place to go as you begin to unlock more powerful vehicles and upgrades. On top of this too, there are multiple unique animals and plants in this area that make it exciting to venture into, giving you a chance to discover things that make an appearance nowhere else. For example, this is the only region in the game where you can find the Oculus, a small species of herbivores that look very similar to peepers, but are twice the size and have two large bioluminescent magenta eyes with large detailed irises. Probably an evolutionary adaptation due to the lower amounts of light in this biome and the need to pick up on the purple hues which are low on the color identification spectrum. Outside of these are the crab snakes, which are highly aggressive elongated serpentine bodies with long translucent fins running through their necks on both sides all the way to the end of their body, finally forming into a tail. They sport razor-sharp fangs and will jump at any creature that threatens them. And considering that the stasis rifle will not work on them in their home biome of the Jellyshroom Caves, staying inside a heavily fortified vehicle is extremely encouraged. If you do manage to avoid these horrors though, the real star of the show down here is without a doubt the Jellyshroom fungi. These plants consist of a tough, trunk-like base which grows a fragile purple membrane, and within the zone itself, they process decaying remains of fish for the crab snakes to eat and grow, which is why the predators often make their homes hidden inside them. This has led most scientific researchers on the planet to conclude that the crab snakes and jelly shrooms live in a sort of symbiotic relationship. Seeing as the jelly shrooms have no natural defense mechanisms, the crab snakes defend them while they supply food. Regardless though, the Jellyshroom Caves are one of the most stunning biomes in all of Subnautica, and a place that while you can find it so early on during your playtime, leaves a mark you won't forget until the very end, and proves that sometimes you don't need amazing lore or crazy leviathans to be the best zone. Sometimes you just need a little splash of color and a cool place to explore. As strange as it sounds, sometimes all you need for an amazing biome in Subnautica is some awesome lore and backstory, and in the case of the Koppa mining site from Below Zero, it proves this point perfectly. And that's because the Koppa mining site is actually a secret Altera Corporation research and mining facility that can be found deep under the crust of Delta Island. If you manage to find one of the small entrances to this place either in the thermal zone proper or its corresponding cave network, you will be treated to a sprawling underground equipment center, full of storage crates and computer terminals, large elevator shafts that moved people around years ago, as well as massive rail systems that carried supplies all around the zone, as workers donned prawn suits to help in everyday tasks. This means that there's so much cool world building to uncover in this area, where if you take your time, you can start to piece together many potential secrets about Altera's past on this planet and what they were up to. And really for me, the biome combines the usual strengths of Subnautica, that being deep sea exploration and dark caverns to poke around in, with something more akin to say a Fallout game, where you will be able to go through the environment and almost watch as it tells a story all to itself. It's a match made in heaven, and something I wish more Subnautica biomes would focus on heavily, that being the lore and history behind it all, telling stories of places and what happened in the past. For example, in the Koppa mining site, you can actually stumble upon a strange green statue in one of the back chambers. And while it's never fully explained to you, just seeing all the lights around it and the abandoned research equipment in the room tells you all you need to know and more. This must have been one of the ancient architect artifacts that Alterra had found and was researching, and it just makes you daydream about what this place would have been like at full capacity with dozens of researchers all working at once. And also, what did Alterra manage to get out of their research? Could it be that one of the most evil corporations in the universe now has access to time travel like the precursors themselves? It's questions like these that make an otherwise straightforward biome such a pleasure to come back to. A place that not only looks pretty in the moment, but one that makes you dream about the possibilities of what else is going on in the universe of Subnautica. If the universe of Subnautica has a hell, then without a doubt, it's the lava zones. Consisting of both the inactive lava zone, ranging from 900 to 1300 meters deep, making it the second deepest fully explorable biome in the game, as well as the actual deepest, the lava lakes, topping out at 1500 meters, this entire biome is characterized by striking hues of red and unbelievable temperatures and danger. Both of these two areas are actually the final two you travel to in the first game, and as such are full of some of the best lore in the entire series, but also sport an intensity unlike anything else. Even traversing these zones can prove extremely difficult, as temperatures can reach as high as 75 degrees Celsius or 167 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you who love freedom. And this means usual go-tos like the sea moth cannot survive due to the heat levels and levels of pressure so deep underwater. And on top of this, to even swim around yourself, you will need to have the most advanced and upgraded reinforced diving suits, and taking the Cyclops or prawn suit is a must. Once you actually get inside though, there is a strange beauty to these hellish biomes that really make them shine. In the inactive lava zone, for example, you will be met with miles of open cliffs spewing molten lava, along with solidified chambers of magma that illuminate your surroundings like the inside of a furnace. There are lots of unique things to find here too, like the lava larvae or magmarangs, fish that have evolved to embrace the heat rather than being cooked by it. And on top of this too, this is the biome where you can find the great sea dragon Leviathan, a colossal reptilian creature that is housed by a dark green fortress of a body that seems to separate the sea with every move it makes. The Leviathan uses its arms and tentacles to propel itself forward through the lava zone at great speeds, and if you get caught out by one, your only hope is to run and pray. But just when you thought things couldn't get even more intense and awesome, depending on the type of person you are, if you manage to make your way through the inactive lava zone, you finally find yourself in the finale of the game and one of the most memorable biomes in Subnautica history, the lava lakes. While much smaller than the inactive lava zone, and thus for many people not quite as grand, it makes up for this lack of size with absolutely breathtaking views. Giant walls and lakes of lava blanket as far as the eye can see, with obsidian pillars and magma formations creating vast geological structures to wade your way through. The heat and brightness here is so powerful that your skin will immediately melt into your bones if you are not properly protected, and spending any more than mere seconds in the fiery infernos all around you will result in a swift death. It's the quintessential example of how to make a player feel powerless in Subnautica, and is the perfect culmination of everything terrifying you've seen up to this point in a final zone that makes all others feel like they were just a warm-up. Not necessarily because this zone is the scariest, but because it's the most fearsome, most ferocious. But the thing is, I think what really puts this biome over the edge into my top 5 favorite biomes in the entire series is that it's also home to the primary containment facility. This gargantuan research base, also known as the Emperor Containment Facility, was originally constructed 1,000 years ago by the precursor aliens or architects, who in their desperation to find a cure to the Carabacterium outbreak that was killing their species, found the Sea Emperor Leviathan, a species that looks very similar to the sea dragons and is the single largest living leviathan we have seen yet. The precursors took special interest in this hulking beast because of its resistance to Kara, meaning the Sea Emperor is likely the key to solving what could be the most evil force in the entire universe, that can wipe out entire hyper-advanced civilizations all on its own. It's such a fascinating concept not just because it's cool in its own right, but because it finally puts all the pieces together for the main story that most players have been going through for hours up to this point, and shows that oftentimes the most interesting bits of world building happen in the most dangerous kinds of places. And overall, it's hard to argue that the lava zones in Subnautica aren't something special, a place that feels so foreboding yet too enticing to not engage with. And in a way, isn't that what every amazing Subnautica biome does? That being making a place that is daunting yet exhilarating at the same time. One of the hardest aspects of making a new biome in Subnautica has to be the idea of providing variety, while still remaining on course to one singular theme. And in terms of places like this that manage to do it perfectly, the Glacial Basin far and away is one of the most impressive, diverse, and just overall best biomes that the universe of Subnautica has ever seen. And I know how strange that might sound to some of you. After all, there are many in the community who do not like below zero at all, and especially its above ground sections. But you see, the Glacial Basin is so much more than just what meets the eye. First of all, the zone itself is split up into many subsections. There is the Glacial Basin itself, a rocky exterior surrounded by tall icy cliff sides and ridges, along with many frozen waterfalls and rivers that split the region in two. And as the second largest outside zone in the whole series, this area is full of things like frosted sinew trees or open valleys to use your Snow Fox bike going at breakneck speeds. And everywhere you go is a new adventure all to itself. Nearby, you can find so many fascinating areas to explore, like the blue ice caves and dark caves, the glacial forest composed of purple frost acacia trees, or what about the massive ice fissure with frost-faced plants, or the temperate and underwater caves full of green glowing ice stalagmites which illuminate a long-lost winter wonderland. And those aren't even the full extent of what this biome has to offer either. In the very northern tip of the zone, you can find the Glacial Bay, where the Altera Corporation has a strong presence, including various structures like blizzard lines or radio towers that were frequently used in their heyday. Here as well, you can also find massive hydraulic fluid lines or steam vents that lead to architect structures or power lines that unlock facilities with deep lore and implications. And just wait, because we still aren't done, because the Glacial Basin is also home to deep underwater caves called the Glacial Connection, which extend over 200 meters below water and are home to some of the most striking visuals in the entire series, with full Arctic kelp forests and eye jellies dotting the waters. The eye jellies especially provide a beautiful tapestry of light in this zone, and make it almost feel like you are swimming through a painting at times, where no matter where you look, you will be taken aback by the awe of it all. I mean, seriously, look at something like this, or this. Utterly captivating, icy underwater caves full of creatures and bioluminescence that takes your breath away. And as if it couldn't get any better, the Glacial Basin is also home to maybe the single most fascinating area from a lore perspective, the Phi excavation site. This massive research facility built deep within a large mountain at the western side of the Glacial Basin is a cavernous space that shows signs of previous rock collapse, with large boulders and pebbles littering the floor. But the real reason this place is so significant is it's home to a top-secret research project, one that reveals to us one of the biggest mysteries of the series. Years ago, an Altera employee stumbled upon a gargantuan super leviathan frozen in the ice that had been infected by large charasaurs all over its body. The research going on here in the excavation site is all about figuring what is going on with this monster and uncovering the secrets of the Carabacterium as a whole. And because this research facility and the monster are so well preserved in this icy mountain, you can even still ride the elevators, check on some lost log notes, and piece together a good amount of the backstory and history. And when you combine that with all the other zones of the Glacial Basin we've touched on a little bit here, you begin to realize just how utterly amazing this biome is. To me, it's the quintessential example of what I would like to see more of in future games. A zone with distinct flavor, yet so many variations within that. In this case, an icy tundra and valley with secret crevices to uncover all around you. And it goes to show something I've been arguing for years now, that Subnautica Below Zero has some of the best biomes in the entire series. And I simply don't know how it would be possible to walk into the Glacial Basin and be anything but impressed. And for that reason, it's one of my personal favorite biomes of all time.